Captain Picard is just as badass as Worf. In Star Trek, TNG's first big Klingon episode, Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart, proved to be just as badass as LT. Worf, Michael Dorn, in this classic Klingon episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. After initially being relegated to the background in TNG Season 1, Worf soon began getting more and more substantial storylines. By Star Trek The Next Generation Season 3, several Worf story arcs had been introduced that would continue to affect the character throughout TNG and Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Worf's complicated relationship with his Klingon heritage became a major aspect of the character as he struggled to reconcile being a Klingon warrior with his duties as a Starfleet officer. Jean-Luc Picard may be most known for his skills as a diplomat, but the captain of the USS Enterprise D could be an action hero when he needed to be. Picard could find a peaceful solution to almost any conflict, only resorting to violence when it was absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, Klingons have never been known for their diplomacy, and Captain Picard had to change tactics when communicating with them. Picard demonstrated how much he cared for his crew members countless times throughout Star Trek The Next Generation, such as when he supported Worf on the Klingon homeworld of Konos in TNG Season 3, Episode 17, Sins of the Father. Star Trek TNG's first big Klingon episode proves Picard is just as badass as Worf. In Star Trek The Next Generation's Sins of the Father, Captain Picard stands beside Worf as he challenges the Klingon High Council. When Worf's long-lost brother Kurn, Tony Todd, visits the Starship Enterprise as part of the officer exchange program, he reveals that their father, Mo, has been branded a traitor. A duplicitous Klingon named Duras, Patrick Massett, claims to have found evidence suggesting that Mo was responsible for the massacre at Khitomer that resulted in the deaths of 4,000 Klingons. Determined to clear his father's name, Worf then travels to Konos to challenge the Klingon High Council. While Captain Picard could have let Worf go to Konos alone, he instead takes the USS Enterprise D to the Klingon homeworld and stands beside Worf. Not only does Picard face the High Council and the Klingon Chancellor without flinching, but he also holds his own against two Klingon assassins. Risking his own safety, Picard ventures into the Old Quarter in search of a witness named Kallist, Thelma Lee, who could clear Mo's name. He is ambushed by two assassins, but manages to take down one of the Klingon warriors before the other overwhelms him. Thankfully, Kallist saves Picard from the final Klingon with a well-aimed knife throw. Captain Picard is always willing to fight for his USS Enterprise crew. Captain Picard volunteers to take the USS Enterprise to Konos without hesitation to support Worf, never questioning whether Worf is in the right or not. Picard trusts his chief of security and vouches for Worf in front of the Klingon High Council. Facing a room full of angry Klingons, Picard stands tall, raising his voice just as the Klingons do, intoning that Worf has earned my admiration and my respect. Even the Klingons acknowledge that the trust of a commanding officer is admirable. Although Kurn initially agrees to serve as Worf's Chidich, or second, he is ambushed and severely injured. Worf then asks Picard to stand with him as his Chidich, which Picard accepts by repeating the traditional acceptance phrase in Klingon. Not only does Picard stand at Worf's side throughout his challenge, but he also takes the time to learn the proper phrases, rituals, and customs of the Klingons. Jean-Luc Picard's loyalty and support of his crew are among the many things that make Star Trek The Next Generation's captain one of Star Trek's greatest characters. In Star Trek The Next Generation, TNG, Captain Jean-Luc Picard is often seen as the intellectual and diplomatic foil to the warrior like Lieutenant Worf. However, in TNG's first major Klingon-centered episode, Heart of Glory, Season 1, Episode 19, Picard proves that he can be just as badass as Worf, despite their contrasting personas. This episode not only highlights Worf's internal struggle between his Klingon heritage and Starfleet duty, but also showcases Picard's boldness, competence, and courage under pressure. It's a masterclass in leadership and diplomacy, revealing that Picard's brand of badassery lies in his unwavering moral strength, strategic brilliance, and capacity for empathy in tense situations. Heart of Glory is pivotal for Worf's character development as he faces his first major test of loyalty to Starfleet when confronted with the violent passions of his Klingon roots. The episode opens with the Enterprise rescuing 3 Klingon survivors from a damaged freighter in the neutral zone. 2 of these Klingons, Chorus and Konmol, are radicals who romanticize the old ways of Klingon warrior culture. Worf, intrigued and stirred by their fervor, finds himself torn between the rigid codes of Starfleet and the ancestral pull of Klingon tradition. Worf's struggle is compelling, but Picard's role is equally significant. From the outset, Picard is fully aware that this situation is more than a simple rescue mission. He knows the complexities of Klingon culture and recognizes the potential for conflict, especially with Worf's personal connection. Rather than avoid or sidestep this challenge, Picard faces it head-on. He engages with Chorus and Conmol diplomatically, but with an acute understanding of the danger they pose. This approach sets the tone for his badass leadership throughout the episode. In typical Picard fashion, he doesn't rely on brute force or physical aggression. Instead, he uses his intellect and understanding of Klingon honor to manage the escalating situation. When Chorus and Conmol begin to reveal their contempt for the current Klingon government and their desire to live as true warriors, Picard doesn't flinch. He confronts their ideology directly, questioning their motives without undermining Klingon pride or honor. This ability to respect Klingon values while holding firm to his own ethical standards is what makes Picard a formidable captain. Whereas Worf is grappling with his identity and a longing for acceptance within Klingon culture, Picard remains steady, embodying the principles of Starfleet and the Federation. Yet, his resolve is far from passive. When Chorus tries to manipulate Worf into joining his cause, Picard trusts Worf's judgment, but also prepares the Enterprise for the worst. This strategic mindset is one of Picard's strongest qualities. As a leader, he's always thinking several steps ahead. Picard's calm authority throughout this episode is its own kind of power, one that doesn't need to shout or engage in hand-to-hand combat to be effective. The climax of the episode is where both Worf and Picard shine, albeit in different ways. When Chorus takes control of the Enterprise's engineering section, threatening to destroy the ship, Worf is forced to confront his kin. The confrontation between Worf and Chorus is a personal reckoning, a moment that pushes Worf to choose between his loyalty to Starfleet and the seductive call of Klingon warrior ideals. Ultimately, Worf proves his loyalty to Picard and the Enterprise by killing Chorus, affirming that his place is in Starfleet. However, Picard's role in this tense standoff is just as impressive, if not more so. Throughout the confrontation, Picard remains composed, never letting the situation spiral out of control. His trust in Worf to resolve the matter shows not only his deep understanding of his crew, but also his willingness to make difficult decisions. It's a subtle yet powerful form of leadership, one that demands courage and conviction. By putting his faith in Worf, Picard demonstrates that true strength lies in trust and mutual respect, not just in physical prowess. Moreover, Picard's badassery is evident in the way he navigates the political ramifications of the situation. Dealing with Klingons is no easy task, and any wrong move could spark a diplomatic incident. Picard's handling of the Klingon High Command, his careful orchestration of the crew's actions, and his ability to balance diplomacy with firmness are all testaments to his strategic genius. While Worf embodies the physical strength and warrior spirit of a Klingon, Picard exemplifies the power of intellect, empathy, and leadership qualities that make him just as formidable in any crisis. In many ways, Heart of Glory is a blueprint for how TNG would continue to explore the themes of identity, loyalty, and leadership. Worf's journey as a Klingon in Starfleet is just beginning,